Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you're too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.
Welcome to Street Talk. My name is Ahmad Shakaraki, and on Street Talk, what we do, we talk about things that happen here in Michigan, the U.S., and abroad. We do political, social, and economics. Now, joining me tonight,
Dennis Burnside.
We got a lot to cover, but first of all, how do you figure this? Now, at first, Trump wasn't he had nothing to say for 9 or 10 days about the guy from Georgia. Alabama. Moore. And then he announced he was with him. So what do you
Well, it's tribalism. It's the reason why you have people who will tell you with a straight face they have the most profound moral compass that is on the planet, that they love them some Jesus and the good religious, moral, upstanding people who are going out of their way to support a pedophile. And that's what Roy Moore is. He's a pedophile. He was preying on underage teenage girls anywhere from the ages of 14 to 17. The man even said out of his own mouth that he never pursued a relationship without the mother's permission. Now, what kind of 32-year-old man, 33-year-old man, 34-year-old man, 35-year-old man needs to go talk to someone's mother to get permission to date their daughter, to get permission from the mother to date anybody? If you have to do that, that should tell you right now that you're inappropriate. And the idea that Trump was silent for a couple weeks was because, A, he has his own complications with sexual harassment and sexual assault. Let's call it what it is. He admitted to being a sexual assaulter. And then he also had this pragmatic need to fill that seat with a Republican. So he was reticent to say anything critical of Moore. When the whole thing came out about Al Franken and the first woman who accused him of kissing her uninvited and posing with his hands over her breasts came out, which was all conveniently timed, by the way, all came through the right-wing echo chamber. That gave Trump a little bit of cover to start talking about how Al Franken shouldn't be in the Senate while he ignored Moore. It gave him an opportunity to speak on it without pulling himself into it. But then when you had this situation come out with more accusers coming out saying that Moore had done this thing and Al Franken apologized, I guess the man can't help himself, Ahmad. He's a compulsive liar. He has the emotional control of a 7-year-old, and it was on the tip of his tongue, and he had to start running his mouth, and he had to speak in ways that reflect his own ignorance and his own biases, and that's to criticize Al Franken while ignoring his own 16 allegations of sexual assault and harassment and supporting a known pedophile. Franken and Roy Moore aren't even on the same planet in terms of the egregiousness of their indiscretions. In fact, what we have with Al Franken was an indiscretion, 4 of them.
Right.
What we had with Roy Moore was crime. It was a crime.
Yeah. Now joining us tonight, Mr. Patrick Maynard, How do the president, supposed to be president, to me nothing, but anyway, the president supposed to be president, come up and go support this man, a known pedophile, and going to talk bad about one of the Democrats. I mean, this man supposed to be president for everybody.
I think he's president for some people, not
Okay.
everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Period.
Mm-hmm.
But then he had nothing to say about Roy Moore because Roy Moore is a Republican. We don't want a Democrat in there because he's bad for the country. He's bad for the Senate. He's going to do this. He's bad for Second Amendment. He's bad for the wall. All these things he said. He come out, he's bad on crime. The same man who prosecuted those who literally destroyed 4 young kids.
Mm-hmm.
14, 13.
Mm-hmm.
But now he's so good.
Yeah.
Something hit my mind when Dennis was speaking a while ago. I heard this person defending Moore, saying, well, when he came back from Vietnam, just about all the women his age were already married. So he had to turn to younger girls.
Come on.
That is so ridiculous.
Wait
You
a
know,
minute. Somebody,
That just shows how the tribalism. He's on my team. I'm going to defend him no matter what
No
he
matter
did
what.
and how bananas it is. I'm going to find a way. I'm going to contort myself into a pretzel knot in order to try to defend what this man did. That's what that is.
But on
There
top-
weren't any 30-year-olds left
On
in
top of
Alabama.
that, he had a set of Christian ministers the other day. And this one he got at the media and tell them, this is a righteous man, upright man, God fearing man, blah, 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 blah. And what? Y'all of you just this, that. Push them down. And what you all need is the Jesus that he knows. Well, hold on a second. Dennis, don't even answer here now. Okay?
Bite my
This
tongue.
Jesus, since you're talking, these are Christian ministers, they're going to talk Jesus. If Roy Moore knows Jesus experientially, he has experienced the Jesus, he would do differently. If Roy Moore knows the name Jesus, I'm not surprised of what he did, because that encounter isn't there. Lots of people know. A lot of people know your name, Ahmad, but they don't know the person. They don't know you. They look at me, but they don't know the rest of me. They only see the physical. And that's what's going on there. And Trump, smart as he claims to be, he must be yogi, smarter than the average bear. He wants it known that he has a higher IQ than this and blah, blah, blah. And he couldn't see anything wrong with Moore, but everything wrong with everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's tribalism, Ahmad.
Give me a break.
Just break it down. Forget GOP, forget Christian, forget Muslim, whatever religion they want to make up and claim. It's tribalism. He's my team. I'll justify whatever
That's
he
right.
does. You know, it's no different than Christian ministers justifying slavery and Jim Crow.
That's right.
It's no different than Catholics justifying pedophilia or the Children's Crusade. It's all the same type of mentality that says my moral compass is malleable and can be moved and is adjusted to whatever I decide at the moment is expeditious for me. And it's what's expeditious for them right now is to get a Republican in that seat
Senate.
rather than a Democrat, and they'll use whatever rationale. That man could have been damn near convicted or accused or had evidence brought against him about just about any crime.
Yep.
Maybe if he'd have married a black woman, that would have eliminated him from the Alabama voters' mind. But there's pretty much nothing
And on
that he
top of
can't
that,
do.
you know-
And I heard he's up 1 point today.
On top of that, Dennis, here is a guy who been through so much. And they think, oh, he been there standing up for all these years. But the man was kicked off the bench twice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, he's such a upright man.
He
Well, man,
refused to follow the law.
Mm-hmm.
He brought in a 10 Commandments
yeah.
not drawing, but a statue, carved from stone,
Yep.
without permission, without consulting his other justices, and put it in the lobby of the Supreme Court building.
refused to
And
step
then
down.
they told him when the U.S. Supreme Court said you must remove that, he refused to.
Yep.
And so this is a man who's a scofflaw. He's a
And now he wants to be
a
where they're
criminal
making the
pedophile.
laws.
Yeah.
So you get him now. These things and all these things that happen. He done all these things, but still he's running around and people running around. And this woman said, what was she? She's the governor of Alabama or something like that. She believed him, but still she was going to vote for him.
She believes that he
believed the
approached
women.
underage
Yeah, she-
women?
yeah,
Or
she-
she believes the women?
Yeah, she
Or you
believed
say
the
believe
women,
him?
but still she's going to vote for him.
Tribalism. Tribalism,
Wait
man.
a second. Think about that. Here is a woman in a high office.
Yep.
She is saying, I believe what these women are
Yeah,
saying.
yeah.
But nevertheless,
Yeah.
I'm still going to vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
Why? He's a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah.
It has nothing to do with integrity. It has nothing to do with morals. It has nothing to do with anything
No,
else.
no.
You know what? I think it does have to do with integrity and morals. It has to do with the lack of integrity and the lack of morals.
You are-
Because you can wear a cross around your neck
True.
and you can go to church every Sunday and you can spout all you want to about how saved you are and what Jesus is, but your actions tell me more than what your mouth
Amen.
does or where you go on Sundays. And if you can advocate for something like that, you don't have morals.
Right.
You don't have integrity. You are pretty much an endorser and an enabler of a pedophile. That's what you are.
Yeah.
So take that to you and sleep at night.
But here this woman. I mean, she believes what these ladies have said, but still gonna go and vote for this man. I mean, it tears down every. It just destroys everything that anyone could look at her. Anyone could look for her to be in a way righteous, but she done said this. How can anyone believe her? What?
I understand that, I had a judge right in this country said, I believe everything Mr. Maynard said. He's a credible witness. But I don't believe this caused that. Well, all I tell you is what happened. Cause, effect. I agree to that. But then I don't agree this is the effect. Give me a break.
But it just shows the sickness we have in this country. You've got a whole industry. You've got a whole collaborative effort by people on the right wing to deny African Americans the franchise, the ability to vote unimpeded. It's part of what helped steal the election for Trump. That and interference from Russia with Putin and Natasha and Boris and Vladimir and all those cats over there. Who are money launderers and international criminals. They wanted Trump in there because he relied on them for financing. He relied on them for bolstering him. And Trump's an international criminal. Let's face it. He's been a money launderer since the late 70s. So you've got a situation where people will tell you what they are, but you can look at their actions and see what they are.
Right.
So don't think you're going to impress me by coming up to me telling me how Christian you are. I could care less. You could come up to me and tell me you eat worms every morning, and I'd be just as impressed by your moral correctness, because until I see how you are, until I view you in action, your titles, yourself appointed titles mean nothing to me. And so the very same people that can steal votes, suppress votes, ignore the Constitution, elevate criminals like Trump and Moore to positions of authority, have nothing to say to me in terms of what's moral and correct. They nothing. They have absolutely nothing to bring to any conversation I have. They're beyond contempt.
Now, we've got when's that election? December.
In Alabama?
Yeah.
I believe it's 18th.
I thought it was the 12th.
Or it could be the 12th.
But and you saying he's up now?
Well, I just heard early this morning that he was up by a point. And keep in mind, the same interference that happened during the 2016 election has not been addressed. So the inability of African Americans to go out and vote for their candidate of choice, the ability of people to have the election results reflect what they actually put into that machine still hasn't been addressed. Where you saw it addressed in Virginia, where they had actual paper ballots,
Yes.
where you couldn't use the computer malfeasance program they've been running for a while. The results came out, and the Democrats did quite well. From governor
Very
on
well,
down.
not
Yeah,
just quite
yeah,
well.
exactly. But when you have the Russian interference, the tapping of the voter rolls, the interference in the voting mechanisms, the suppression and misinformation through social media that goes on, they have a good chance of being declared the winner, having not won the election. So we don't have legitimate elections anymore.
No.
And what really amazes me, and this has been going on since the early 2000s, this happened with Bush.
Yep.
This happened with Bush and Cheney. They were stealing elections back then. You have a manufacturer called Diebold or Diebold, and you'll see him every day. You go to your ATM, Mr. and Mrs. audience member out there, and when you stick your ATM card in there and you go pull out your cash, just look at the manufacturer of that machine. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's going to say Diebold. And that machine is able to give you to the penny. To the penny. How much money is left in your checking and saving account that you just withdrew that money from? Now, there are trillions of dollars circulating in these ATMs all over the country.
Yep.
But they're able to manage that to the penny. But when it comes to voting blocks, in a district where you may have 2,000, 4,000, in a big city, maybe 10,000 people in a precinct, somehow we're unable to give you a printed receipt of what you just voted on and tabulate it in a way that we can go back and audit and see who actually voted for who and who got how many votes. We just can't, we don't know how. You don't know how, you don't want to, because you're stealing. So don't tell me about this red, white, and blue and democracy and how much you love it and how much you love the Constitution and how much you love moral correctness, because you do not love those things. You love being in power.
They were rigging these machines. And
Absolutely.
You can program it to say what you want it to do, and it will do what you ask it to do.
Absolutely. But you know, Napoleon said long time ago that history, I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, history is what we tell you it is. And we had another, I think it was either Mussolini or maybe it was Stalin, but one of them said an election outcome is not determined by who votes, but who counts the votes. That's how we determine elections.
Yeah, we look now, man. We see in all these places where we got this type of machine, that type of machine, that type of machine, and right now, I was watching something a couple of months ago, and they was talking about was talking about that, you know, about the different machines in different states, you know, and I was watching Rachel Maddow one night. Anyway, she was saying she was picking out the different states, and she was saying where all these Democrats voted, but it's like the thing was shifted so what do you call it? What the Republicans do, what they did to Michigan, they did to
gerrymandering the
yeah,
districts.
that the Democrat votes was like 10 to 12% higher in these places, but still they couldn't beat the
Yeah, they've got the districts rigged
Yeah.
through gerrymandering. That's
Yeah.
all over the country.
Yeah.
And that happens frequently. That's why you have a situation where Hillary Clinton won by 3 million votes, and people say, "Well, it's electoral college." And no. It's electoral college too, but it's also gerrymandering because a lot of those districts that she won overwhelmingly were in places where they didn't even bother to cheat, but where you have the swing votes in places like Michigan. Where you had a recount in Detroit after the election in 2016 that was just a few hours in, and they stopped the vote. They had already found 23,000 lost votes. Trump won Michigan ostensibly by 7,000 votes. So right there in Wayne County, evidence that he didn't win Michigan was there. Same thing happened in Wisconsin, where the voting in Madison and Milwaukee was mysteriously suppressed and lost. But you had all the red counties out in the rural areas where tribalism exists. And we see these people of European descent who call themselves white and call themselves Christians. They will vote for the most criminal, egregious person on earth as long as he says, "I'm in the GOP."
Yeah.
And on top of that, you can point out to them that economically you do better under progressive administrations.
Yeah.
Economically these guys are screwing you. You can see with this tax bill that they're putting out that they're really going to hurt you. And they still say, "I'd rather have that and not have a job, not have my taxes reduced so I can listen to Rush and watch Fox News and say how bad the Democrats are."
Yeah.
So there's no reaching them, man.
No.
The only thing we can do, and I think there's a good effort underway in Michigan, you guys may have heard about it. There's a petition that went around and they're trying to eliminate gerrymandering in the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
And they've got millions of signatures already, way over the target.
Yeah.
So it indicates to me that there's more than enough public support to win that in a legitimate election. But the problem is we live in a totalitarian state. We live in, I don't mean state like Michigan, I mean the United States.
Yeah.
Where we have people in power who says the outcome of the election is what I say it is. I'll give you one more example, and I'll let it go. Padgett probably wants to add on here. For years and years and years, the gold standard of legitimate elections all over the world were the exit polls. UNICEF, NATO, the UN, different organizations that monitor voting would always go in and say, "Tell me, mister, who did you vote for? What did you just do? Tell me, ma'am, who did you just vote for? Not what you're gonna do if you get to the polls, not who you're thinking about.
Right.
What did you just do?" And for time immemorial, that post vote post vote decision was always seen as the exit poll was always seen as the gold standard. All of a sudden, when we started having these electronic voting machines during the Bush and Cheney administrations, all of a sudden, we can't figure it out. It doesn't make any sense. Nate Silver is a guy who had never missed on an election. 2 days before the election, he said I take that back, 2 weeks before the election, he had Hillary Clinton up by 13 points. It came down to 6 points because Comey released that letter saying he was investigated. So 6 points. You're still not within the margin of error.
Right.
And all of a sudden, Trump supposedly won. They're still in elections, man. It's just not legitimate.
You were saying, Patrick?
Man, look. The man in power is going to do everything to stay in power. As a matter of fact, one politician referred to this other one losing. He said, "You're not supposed to lose when you're the party in power. You fix things that you'll always win." what's his name there over in Zimbabwe?
Mugabe.
Mugabe?
Mm-hmm.
He finally, the pressure came.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to do some pressuring and get this chump out of the office?
Mm-hmm.
But it shouldn't be that hard. It should be if you believe in democracy,
Yeah.
and if you ostensibly believe in free and fair elections, we should have people have to maybe have a day off, a voting holiday, or have voting on the weekend, or do what the state of Washington did. You just mail in your vote. If you've got a driver's license or some type of utility bill to prove that you're there and you're of age, mail in your vote.
Yeah.
If we really wanted free and fair elections that reflected the will of the people, we would do things like that. But we don't want to reflect the
Right.
will of the people.
Yeah.
We want to reflect the will of the oligarchs and the people in power. And that's why we have the government. We have the government that we deserve, which is a terrible government.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, and it's been it to me. It's been like that. When I left Vietnam, I said, I'd never really thought about it, but then I said, this is the worst government it is. We've got about 5 minutes, and we know. In a lot of these states now, they're trying to correct some of these things that we were just talking about. Still, it's a hinder for blacks and minorities to get to the poll and be at the poll. I noticed the Trump administration is trying their best to just do away with the people voting on Sundays. How they had it
Sold to the polls.
Yeah. Trying to do away with that.
Of course.
So do you think next year and in 220, 218 and 220, we'll have some kind of
correction?
Yeah.
No. It's been this way. They've been playing with electronic voting since the 2000 election. That was their first. That was their kickoff. That was the debut party. And if you remember, you had situations in Florida where you had Kathleen, I forget her last name, working with Jeb Bush to remove black voters from the rolls using an apparatus called card check, which said if my name is Leroy Johnson, and there was a Leroy Johnson in Georgia who was convicted of armed robbery in 1984, every Leroy Johnson in the state of Florida was taken off the voting rolls. And if you look at Leroy Johnsons, they typically tend to be black. Same thing happened with Manuel Ortega. If Manuel Ortega in South Carolina had shot a guy in the back during a card game, every Manuel Ortega in Florida is taken off the voting rolls. They did this in only predominantly black areas like Dade County, like Broward County. They selectively enforced this so that they could suppress the black vote. From that point on, it's only gotten more and more sophisticated. And they had a few votes where when they were doing the manual recount, where they had what they called the little hanging chad, where the paper was punched through, but it was hanging there. And they said, whoa, we can't have paper ballots. We've got hanging chad problems. So we're going to have to fix this with just pure electronic voting machines. Well, wait a minute. The electronic voting machines are what gave us the problem with all these voters being taken off the rolls and with card check. So why are you magnifying this problem and minimizing the real problem, which is voter suppression?
Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin to such extent that you bleach to get like the white man? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to?
Don't let anybody make you think that God chose America as his divine messianic force to be a sort of policeman of the whole world. God has a way of standing before the nations with judgment, and it seems that I can hear God saying to America, you are too arrogant. If you don't change your ways, I will rise up and break the backbone of your power, and I'll place it in the hands of a nation that doesn't even know my name. Be still and know that I'm God.